Hello everyone. In this video, I want to go over Packet Tracer 6.2.4 in module 6. So this Packet Tracer, it's a configurations for Ether channels um, or port channels. So you might hear people call this Ether channels or port channels. They means the same thing. So the concept of Ether channel is that you take multiple physical links and you bundle them together to create this logical interface. That's the benefit of that is it aggregates all the bandwidth of the physical links. So it provides redundancies for the physical link as well as the bandwidth aggregations um, of the links. So this is the concept of Ether channels. So let's go over the configurations inside this packet tracer here. So what we want to do first is configure a basic switch settings. I think you just need to configure the host name on the switch, on these switches. Then you want to configure Ether channel using Cisco protocol. It's a PAGP here. Then we also want to configure an Ether channel using IEEE protocol. It's called LACP. All right, so let's go through the packet tracer setting here. So let's go to switch 1 and we want to issue a few show commands to see the status of the interface trunks. So let's take a look. So I'm on switch 1 right now. Go to CUI. First, let's change this host name of the switch to S1. Now let's issue the show interface piped include Ethernet. So what this command does is that it's going to search show interface, and it's going to include any words that say Ethernet, right? So anything that relating to Ethernet, it's shown right here. Okay. So the main thing we want to take note is that for switch 1 we have fast Ethernet 021, 22. It's in the connected up state. Same with gig 01 and 02. All right. So this show command here kind of give you a brief status on the interface. So let's do show interface status. So this command, it's a little bit different as far as what it's showing you. Again, it's so for this one mainly it gives you the status of the interface as well as the duplex speed and the VLAN as well. Okay. So let's do the last show interface trunk command here. So no interfaces on this switch has been configured trunk, or there's no trunk on this switch yet. So for part 2 here, we want to start with Ether channel using Cisco protocol PAGP. So it said that it is recommended to shut down the physical interfaces before you configure ether channels. So configure port channel 1, step 1 for part 2. We want to aggregate fast Ethernet 21 and 22 on switch 1. So these two interfaces. We want to create a logical interface called port channel 1 using PAGP so that it is aggregate the two physical interfaces together. And you want to do both on both ends of the switch of the connections, right? The switch 1 and switch 3 side as well. So let's start here on switch 1. So that is step C here. Okay, so here's an interface command that you can use to kind of do a range command on more than one interface at the same time. So in this case, I'm going to use interface range FA01 to 021 to 22. So what I'm doing here is I'm configure both interfaces of 21 and 22 at the same time. So it is recommended to shut down the interface first, and then you want to configure channel group 1 desirable. Mode desirable. Once you work with Etherchannel for a while, you will automatically understand when a channel's configurations using the keywords such as desirable, active, passive, you know which protocol, either PAGP from Cisco or IEEE LACP, it's been configured or used. So in this case, desirable means that it is Cisco PAGP. Alright, so at this point I've completed S1 PAGP configurations. So I need to go into switch 3 and I want to do the same here. First I need to change the host name, then I'm going to use the range interface. I don't need to do a shutdown on this side because I already done it on switch 1 side. So for this one I just need to so you can see I just create the logical interface called port channels 1, right? So this interface bundle the two physical interfaces FA21 and 22 together. Now, again, remember the trunk concept, trunk interface concept. Every time you see the switches are connected to each other, the interface that connects the two switches likely to be a trunk. So we need to configure the trunk interface for these physical interface here. So the good thing about ether channels, port channel, you can make changes in the logical port channel that you create. So in this case, I can go to interface port channel 1, and any changes that I make inside the port channels will reflect to the physical port channel, physical interface. Okay, so I'm going to do switch port mode trunk. All right. So the native VLAN, remember every trunk interface, pay attention to the native VLANs. If it changed from the default, which is VLAN 1, then you need to change the configurations as well, right, on the trunk interface. But in this packet tracer, I think the native VLAN is default 1 for VLAN 1, so we don't need to do much here. So we are done with switch 3 Etherchannel configuration. So I want to go back to switch 1 here and go to port channel 1 logical interface and issue a switch port mode trunk, right, and do a no shut. So I want to go back to interface, the physical interface, and issues a no shut command on those two physical interface as well. Alright, so you can see the port channels has came up in the upstate here. I just want to point it out, when you do a channel group statement like this and the number 1, that means it is the number on the port channels interface. Okay, so if I do this show commands Etherchannel summary, so this show command will tell you the status of the logical port, Etherchannel port that you created, right? So here it say that it is port channel 1, it is using PAGP, and it's using the physical interface 21 and 22 in bundle. The P stand for it is input channel, so if it's anything but the letter P here, that means the interface configurations need to be looked at. There's something wrong with it. Okay, so it looks like we are good. If this one end looks good, the other end, which is switch 3, will more likely to look good as well. Okay, we can double check that. Yes. So both in the P status port channels. So that is the final configuration for Etherchannel using Cisco PAGP protocol. So let's move to the configurations for Etherchannel using IEEE protocol LACP. Alright, so we're going back to switch 1 and we're going to configure gig 01 and gig 02 toward S2 switch 2 using LACP Etherchannel protocol. So we go on gig 1/dat2 range command here, issue a shutdown, and then we want to do channel group 2. We already used 1, right? Channel group 1 on switch 1, so you don't want to reuse that because it's going to replace that configuration. So you want a different number here. So mode active. So the active keyword here means that I'm using LACP, right, rather than PAGP, which is desirable in the previous configuration. So once I create the logical port channels, I want to go in that port channel 2 and issue a switch mode trunk. Okay. So I'm done with S1. I need to go to switch 2. Again, change the host name first. Then go to your range interface. For this guy, it's also gig 0. That's 1 and 2. Do a channel group 2. Now, so this is locally significant, like the channel group. But I recommend to keep it the same on both switches if for the links that they are connecting to each other. Mo active. Then I'm going into the logical and issue is switch mode show. So that looks good on switch 2. Let's turn the interface back on. No shot. Okay. We wait until these interfaces are turning green, so I'm going to skip a little bit. Okay. So now they are green. Let's do a show Etherchannel summary. Check the status. So the status also looking good. All right, so we done with part 3, step 2. So let's move to part 4. So part 4, we want to configure the port channels using LACP for passive and active keywords. So as long as you have one side of the configurations on the switch that doing the active, the other side, which is the other switch, you could configure the interface or the channel group as passive or active, right? So either one will work. The side of configure active, it's gonna be negotiations, negotiating the port channel protocol to the other side. So for switch 2, let's go back to switch 2. So interface. So right now we're working on the links below between switch 2 and switch 3. So we want to go to interface range FA0 23 to 24. We want to do channel group Mo. Okay, so do a question mark. Sorry. So channel group Mo, channel group 3 Mo, and a question mark. So with the question mark, I tell you there's other options that you can use for this command here. So we know what desirable means. We've done that. We've done active as well, right? So let's do passive. Again, passive and active, those are LACP protocol keywords. So we do passive on this side. Let me do a shutdown. So we go to the port channel 3. Issue the switch mode trunk. Okay. Okay, so on switch 3, so we want to keep the channel group or interface ID the same, 3 mode. So here, now if I put active on this switch, it's gonna work. It's gonna negotiate LACP with switch 2 and form an LACP ether channel. Okay. But if I put passive here, it's not gonna form the ether channel because you can't have both switches passive. One have to be active for to work. So let me configure mode trunk. So I'm going back to switch 2 to turn back the interface, turn on the interface. Okay. Fast forward real quick for the interface to be green. Okay, so they are good. So I think that is it for part 4, step 1. So let's do a show ether channel real quick summary to verify. Okay, so this look good. Okay, the last step here is, so you can see, even if you use ether channels, right? Even if you create the logical interface to bundle multiple physical links, if you have a connections that in a triangle like this between 3 switches, spanning tree is still going to be a part of your networks here. So you can see the links between S1 and S2 is in an alternate state, right? So if I do show spanning tree active, I can see the port channels. One is in its roots row port and forwarding state. Port channel 2 is connect to switch 2. It's in an alternative block state. So part 4, step 2, basically it wants you to do where you need to modify the switch 1 either priority, but essentially convert it into a switch, a root bridge for spanning trees. So both links, both port channels will be in a designated forward state. So there's 2 ways that you can do that. You can do spanning tree VLAN 1. So this is just only applied to VLAN 1 root primary command, or you can change the priority. Remember back on chapter 5 you learned about spanning tree and how the root bridge selections happens. So this is how you could influence that selections, right? So what we just did is we turned this switch S1 for VLAN 1. It is a root bridge, and the state of the ports on this switch is designate and forwarding. Okay, So that concluded the configurations. That we get 100% completion here. Couple of things before we end the video. So Etherchannel configuration guidelines and restrictions. So make sure you kind of go over, the 11 points here. Essentially, it's trying to understand the mode. First, understand the protocols, the difference between the protocols, Cisco and IEEE, PAGP, LACP. Understand the keywords that have been used in those protocols, and understand the requirements on the physical links for you to be able to aggregate the physical links into a logical port channels. Okay, that's all I have for this packet tracers. Until next time, I see you guys on the next packet tracer.